Hello, everybody, and welcome back to F1 Unhinged. As always, I'm Tyler,
And I'm Josh.
and we had a pretty exciting weekend, I would say, for more reason than one. Josh, what are we talking about first?
Well, first thing that comes to mind for me is just like England in the World Cup, it is not coming home to England in F1.
Truth. Ba-dum.
So do we think George Russell's title hopes are officially over after this?
Kimmy's what, 50 points ahead?
Somewhere in that range.
We just crossed the 10th race of the season. We're supposed to have 12 more. So a little under half the season left. I don't. If he can drive better, no. But if he continues to be a twat, yes, his title hopes are over.
I think they're over for two reasons. The two biggest comebacks in F1 history are both by Max Verstappen. George Russell is not Max Verstappen. True. Also, those two comebacks came when one team fixed car issues that made them more competitive against another team. This is two drivers in the team with the best car competing against each other. Yeah. And we know the way teams eventually prioritize a driver when they are far enough ahead in the championship. I think this weekend got Russell away from being the priority if he wasn't already. Let's face it, we all kind of think Toto's made Kimi the priority anyway.
We've
and
said
now
that
he has but now Toto has an excuse to where there is a clear number one this season and a clear number two. And the points are far enough to where you could argue that now it makes sense to sacrifice George to keep Kimi in the lead.
Yeah, that's true. I think Kimi is going to win the championship, truthfully. And I say that excitedly because I love Kimi, to be honest with you. He's proven his second season in F1 to just be an absolute fucking menace on the track. In the best way, obviously. He's not fucking crashing people like Kosovar and NASCAR, but Kimi is really proven to be a great driver, and like even a great human. Like there was an incident, I think, it was in one of the practices, or no, it was in qualifying.
No, it was in practice.
It was one of the practices.
The signs issue.
Yeah. And Kimi and him ended up being in an elevator together by coincidence, and Kimi apologized and said, "Hey, it was just a heat of the moment. Like, I'm sorry." Like,
though, admittedly, Sainz needs to kind of pull his head out of his ass a little bit.
That is true.
Sainz, I don't know if you saw the issue with him and Max Verstappen, but
no.
Max went to slow down for a double yellow and almost got rear-ended by Sainz, who didn't notice the double yellow. And I mean, it was just practice, but he had a couple incidents again this week where it's like, I wonder if Sainz is getting frustrated at Williams.
I wouldn't be surprised if he was.
Like the way he's driving feels a lot more chaotic than Sainz normally drives.
Yeah, he's usually a bit more detailed and reserved when he's driving.
Yeah. In fact, that was kind of some of the criticism about him, is that he's a little bit of a boring driver who may not force an overtake or make a block. And now he's kind of become that, but not necessarily in the best way.
Yeah, he's become more of a loose cannon in the wrong ways.
Yeah, which is a little bit worrying, but I mean, I can understand some of the frustration going to Williams on a promise of something and that hasn't materialized at all. That's got to be frustrating.
Who's at fault for that, though? Is it James Vowles?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, by James' own admission, that they got in too far over their head. They didn't realize what they didn't know until it was too late. They didn't realize how far they were behind. They didn't realize how much they didn't understand some of the new systems that they were trying to implement, which I mean, is understandable, and I don't think should cost Vows the job
No, because
because he's still done good.
they're
But
still whooping the shit out of Aston Martin and Cadillac, who can't even have both
well,
drivers finish a fucking race.
Cadillac, I think, is strategically that way. I don't
So
think
they get
Cadillac.
they get more air tunnel time.
I think Cadillac are doing a lot of experimental things because they're okay with being last and learning. And I think they're doing a lot of learning because they do a lot of experimental setups. They do a lot of looking at things. I think this entire year for them is a practice session.
That's valid, but what about Aston Martin? Because they paid out the ass for Adrian Newey, and
Well, we really won't know till Hungary because that's when the version 2 of their car comes.
yeah, but version 1 was shit.
But it was so shit there was nothing they could do but make a version 2.
Which
So
doesn't speak volumes about Aston Martin because there's not a single team on the grid outside of Aston Martin that has a version 2 of their car.
Agreed. Well, not completely because some of what Red Bulls has brought could be argued as a version 2 in a lot of respects, and what they're going to be bringing in Hungary because they have a pretty substantial upgrade coming after the summer break too. But I'll give. I'm not going to judge Aston fully because of how everything integrated, and they had a lot of upheaval when there was the inner arguments between people in their team. We talked about it early in the season how Newey basically taking over the team. That didn't happen till late on. This will be the first thing of Newey fully in charge, running everything. If this car sucks, okay, then it's panic stations for Aston. But I will at least give them the grace of a lot of their craziness internally might have affected this, and their new relationship with Honda. Honda seemed to have not informed them of how many people they no longer had from their original engine staff that work at Red Bull now. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But if in Hungary and after Hungary, they're still getting lapped by the entire field, okay, we have a problem.
That's fair.
Cadillac, I'm not even judging this year because I think they're being smart with how they arrange stuff and knowing that they're not going to be a point scorer. Let's figure out as much as we possibly can about these cars so that next year they're a better team.
It just
they're almost pulling what Sauber did last year and has affected Audi this year.
I think it just slightly annoys me that we have 22 teams on the grid and it's only like we have 20 teams on the grid.
Well, but we kind of knew that coming in. It is almost impossible to be a brand new team and come in and be successful. The only reason Haas did it when they came in is because they took everything legally possible from Ferrari and put it on their car. If they actually had to build their own stuff, they wouldn't have been able to do that. And Cadillac's building their own stuff.
You know, but I think the thing that's annoying is that there's 2 new teams on the grid and Aston isn't one of them. And Audi's doing fantastic in terms of where they're sitting.
Yeah, Audi just had their first double points, two races in a row that they've gotten points for the first time.
Yeah, and Gabby got to Q3 for the second time.
Yeah.
But
Audi's a better run team. And we knew they were going to be. Well, and Jonathan Wheatley has to be kicking himself in the ass right now.
Honestly, though, I feel like they would be worse with Wheatley.
I don't. Wheatley's good.
He's good.
Let's not forget how streamlined that ship was last year. They went from the worst team in the pits to having the best pit stop time all year last year. Operationally, Jonathan Wheatley is amazing for that. He is great with the operational things, and Mattia is great with the technical elements.
But could this be Mattia's kind of like fuck you to Ferrari?
I
Not
don't
be
think he's that. I don't think he's that type of personality.
He's not, but
I
he's
I,
having
I
a
think
comeback.
I think he's so neck deep in the engineering of this that he could care less. And I think that's why losing Wheatley hasn't really affected his end of anything.
He has more
Because
responsibilities, but he's still
and he's
controlling
doing what
everything.
he loves doing. He loves being involved in the nitty-gritty details. He loves being involved in the technical elements. That's his playground. Team principal wasn't really his playground. He had to, and you could tell operationally by how Ferrari worked when he was there that wasn't what he was good at.
He had his hands. He had his hands too much in the engineering side while being team principal to actually be a good team principal.
And that led to all the indecision that they had. You know, things come down from the top as far as that goes, and if you're disconnected at the top, you're going to be disconnected at all levels. And we can both agree Ferrari were very disconnected when he was the team principal.
Oh, 100%. But I'm happy to see him like thriving at Audi.
Oh yeah, because he's amazing. It's like Laurent Mekies, who was also at Ferrari during that time.
Yeah.
You know, when you give people roles that they thrive in, they become new versions of themselves. Like Mekies doesn't look anything like the figure at Ferrari that he was, and maybe it's because of what Ferrari was at that time, to where Ferrari looked so underwater that now Mekies in his job. And think about how hard it is to be the Red Bull team principal right now.
Dude, it's got to be incredibly hard, especially coming from Racing Bulls, which they're just kind of just doing their own thing. Like they let their drivers battle. They had an incident
But
this
Mekies
weekend.
really isn't showing that stress.
No, not at all. But
with all the Max stuff, with all the internal Red Bull stuff, he's
not even media facing usually.
No, and I mean his interviews are very informative on the technical stuff, but he doesn't get sucked into the bullshit.
Yeah,
the way some of these other guys do, and I respect that about him because, you know, a lesser character might have fallen apart with all this stress of Max threatening to leave, and this is a problem, and that's a problem, and these new regs, and the car was shit to start the year, and all these problems. But you know, they keep punching above their weight. This weekend being a great example of that car is a fucking boat on the straights, and they managed to pull a podium out of their ass with some really good teamwork from Isaac Hadjar in qualifying and some really good strategy. They put Hadjar on a blinder of a strategy call to get him back in the points, and they did the best they could with Max to keep him on the podium.
Yeah.
And
Red Bull was class this weekend, but we went on an ADHD tangent, and I think the consensus is George Russell's not going to win the championship, and that makes me so fucking happy.
Yeah, he is the last person I wanted to see on the top step. So,
but are Red Bull and Ferrari catching up? That is a huge question.
Well, yes. I think the short answer is yes. The long answer is let's see next year. Because I do have a worry that the reason Mercedes aren't doing an engine upgrade is because they're going to put it in next year. That they're going to save their budget and save their money to focus on a bigger, badder engine next year. That way they can start the year with it while their customers don't know the ins and outs of it the same way that they got the jump on McLaren this year. Because if you notice, McLaren's getting a lot closer to that front now that they're starting to understand how the engine works. But Mercedes have gotten out to such a lead, it doesn't really matter that their customer team caught on.
Yeah, like Lando got really good in qualifying position wise, but he had to serve a 10 place grid penalty for a component.
Yeah,
which sucks, but they let a good race. Lando ended up getting fucked in terms of strategy. I was cursing up a fucking storm. I had our group chat our group chat muted because we didn't start the race until probably like 45 minutes after it started. Kristen had some things to do in the morning. We didn't sleep that much the night before, so I slept in a little bit, and we ended up starting at like 45 minutes late. So I muted the group chat so I didn't get spoilers and shit like that. But I also didn't want to ruin your guys' fun and like talking about it, so I just muted it and didn't participate. But fuck, Lando got really fucked by McLaren's pit strategy, and it pisses me off.
Yeah,
Uh,
shocker there. The new Ferrari.
yeah, but I will say I agree that Mercedes is saving their upgrade for next year, and again, we'll leave their client teams in the dark, which is a shitty thing to do, but welcome to the last 10 years of F1.
Especially when Toto Wolff's involved.
Exactly. But
Speaking of Toto, maybe rant worthy subject. I don't know. Let's see where we go on this. But did you catch his little interview? All of a sudden saying Mercedes has the strongest engine.
I didn't catch the interview, but I caught like the clickbait Instagram posts about it. And
And
I at first I didn't believe it, but then I saw it repetitively and I was like, all right, from different things, and I was like, all right, maybe this is real.
my problem is so the ADUO, your upgrades and development, the whole thing that was introduced in this era to keep the field close is a complete fucking failure. Because if the FIA review the engines and tell us Red Bull by far has the strongest engine, they're the only team that the only engine manufacturer who gets no upgrades at all. They're not allowed to touch their engine. Everyone else gets to. Then we go to Spa, and they're the slowest on the straights, which somewhat to the what they chose to run. But I mean, you have straight line mode, so it's not even like you can fully blame the wings for that.
Yeah.
But you end up in a situation where they're the slowest on the straights. And then after the race, Toto is touting how Mercedes have the best engine on the grid. Well, where the fuck was that 2 months ago when they were not even that, when they were investigating this and telling us that Mercedes didn't have the strongest engine in its Red Bull? What?
Yeah.
And as we have heard, Red Bull have constantly been saying, we see nothing. We have been given no proof that this is true.
Do you
And I
think
can't.
that Mercedes bought the FIA out to say it wasn't them?
Let's not pretend they don't have a good relationship with the FIA, because let's not forget they helped push a lot of the changing of house that happened at the FIA after 2021. They were big supporters of Ben. And what did Ben first do when he came in? Change the rules around what happened in 2021.
Yeah, I was going to say cater to them.
Now we have an engine formula where the engine matters more than everything. And somehow the power unit that everyone agrees is the fastest all of a sudden isn't the fastest. But now they're saying it's the fastest after this is already done. It just proves the whole process was bullshit, like we thought it would be. And we were people were told when they had criticism of it, no, it's going to work, we're going to do it. And it's all bullshit. It's complete
100% bullshit. 100% bullshit. But like, do you feel like this could come back and bite Mercedes in the ass?
I don't know how it could, because the FIA is not going to do anything about it. Because whatever their metrics are saying, are saying Mercedes doesn't have the best engine.
You mean whatever fictitious metrics they have?
I would love to see them.
Me too.
Red Bull would love to see them,
Yeah.
and it's just
Well,
I don't know.
as the
It
FIA, how can you not share those with the rest of the teams? Like, if one team's going to be told they have the best fucking engine on the grid, how is that not? How is that information not shared? And like the reasons why and the scientific aspects of it, because Formula
I
One is
imagine
like,
certain elements of it will be shared. I
but
imagine
the
some
whole
can't
fucking
be.
thing should be shared because F1 is very much
It should
engineering,
just be public
scientific
and open,
based.
but
Yeah.
it should just be a public open thing. Like I don't know if you remember the last year of the old Rex, um, before not so not the ones that they just changed, but the ones even before that. When Max won in 2021. By the end of those regs, everything was an open book. Everyone knew it, basically everything about everything. But also, what worries me, like talking about the regs, is, and we were sending this back and forth in the group chat today. There is a lot more chatter after Spa, not just the regular cases. We saw powerful statements from Sainz, Piastri, the commentary team. Crofty saying it was emotional because they lost the corners that mattered at Silverstone, and now they lost the ones that mattered at Spa. You are having all the people that matter in this sport say something's wrong. And it has to be a point where something's really got to be taken seriously because now it's just not the usual people. It's not just Max bitching about it. It's not just the teams that are behind complaining about it. And it's not just the journalists complaining about it. The voices in the sport that matter are having deep concerns about it now. Because we were told it wouldn't be this bad. And it's worse. Did you notice that there were a lot of complaints from F1 TV people?
I didn't
And
notice.
uh, basically, anyone who watched on boards noticed that it's really hard to get the speed on the on boards now. They show a lot of other things, but they do a pretty good job of hiding the speed.
That's
And
true.
that never used to be a thing. And it's like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, you don't want people to know?
That they're
Like
downshifting
Aston,
on a straight.
and yes, it's an Aston, grain of salt. But Lance Stroll was going slower at the end of the straight than GT3 cars.
True.
That can't happen in F1.
No, it's a laughing stock. It gives more credibility to IndyCar saying they're the fastest racing series on the planet, which is bullshit. But it's also turning out to be kind of true in these situations.
It's just frustrating because we didn't need this. We didn't need this big of a change. There was
No.
nothing. Last year was amazing.
Yeah.
I would kill to have last season's cars. That was a wonderful season.
Yeah.
We had a lot of surprises, some upstart, incredible seesaw championship battle.
There wasn't
It was a
there
perfect
wasn't
season.
there wasn't a DNF every single race for two teams because of reliability issues.
Yeah, it it's frustrating because, as Piastri said, qualifying's decided by whose software works better today. And that's not what this sport's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the drivers. And I don't know what it is that the FIA is not understanding about that. That what we are mad about as fans is the drivers don't matter anymore.
True. And what they have to say doesn't matter anymore.
But what they do in the car barely matters anymore.
Also true.
And that's not what this series is supposed to be. The best drivers on rails driving some of the greatest machinery on earth to the edge of its limits. We're not doing that.
No. Now it's just
And
about conserving energy.
and and it shouldn't be about that. This isn't endurance racing. This is sprint racing. It's not meant to be an endurance series. I can deal with this in WEC. I can deal with tire strategies and energy management, and
You can deal with it in NASCAR too.
yeah,
Because they have a certain amount of gas they can put in to last a certain amount of laps.
and they're longer races.
Yeah.
You can expect that from longer races. But F1 is a sprint series. Your races are about an hour and a half most weekends.
Which is ironic because they also have sprint races in some F1 weekends,
Yeah.
which it's like a sprint series and a sprint series. It's like sprinty sprint.
I would rather watch Formula 2 than Formula 1 right now.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
There was a huge crash in Formula 2 with the big ass
Formula
spin?
3.
It was a Formula 3. The big ass spin that driver had, it was like fucking like 1080 across the track, or like not even across the track. It was down the straight.
I'm so mad at F3 and their teams and drivers right now. This asinine nature of everyone wait to the last second in qualifying, and hey, here's 30 cars trying to occupy the same section of track, and oh surprise, massive wreck.
Yeah. And it wasn't a small spin. It was literally like a 1080 down a straight. Maybe it was insane.
The one I'm talking about in F3 was the multi-car pileup.
Oh, I didn't see that. I just saw a 1080 down a straight.
So the several penalties that got handed out in F3. That's why.
I did see that. I showed Kristen. It was like was it 13 drivers?
I believe so. 13 or 11. But it was the dumbest shit, and it happens all the time. But at Spa, it's really hard because there's a lot of blind corners and a narrow track. And it was also getting ready to rain. It was already sprinkling a little bit. And everyone's trying to time themselves perfectly to get across the line just in time to get the best part of the track for qualifying.
Where did that crash happen? It wasn't at the top of Eau Rouge, was it?
No. It was.
Was it
almost
like
at almost at the end of Sector 2?
Okay, yeah, that straight.
Yeah, well, not even the straight. It was going through because Sector 2's
it's like windy.
The more windy section where you have like No Name and Puan and those corners, and it happened in that stretch of track of just too many people queuing up trying to get the right spot, and you have guys passing each other, and it was a disaster.
This is why F2 exists, because then they work that shit out in F2 before they come to F1.
Well, not always. Sometimes all you got to do is look back to Monza F2 where they red flagged the race because of driving standards.
Fair.
And just called off the race. F2's not immune to idiots. It's just F3 decided to have the monopoly on idiots for the weekend. And it's annoying because the teams are as much to blame as the drivers, because you're dealing with pretty much purely teenagers. And they're not going to be the best decision makers already. The team should be smarter. But everyone's going off the data of when the best time to leave the pits is to get the best lap. And it's like, Yeah, in a field of 30, if you're all leaving at the same time, there's going to be a fucking traffic jam. And there was, and the traffic jam became a big wreck. That was a red flag, and then nobody got to do their final lap. And a whole
Sucks
bunch
to
of people got
suck.
penalties for it.
It
It was,
it was John Bennett that according to this, suffered a critical race-ending spin in the closing stages of the July 18th sprint race.
okay. But
Um, if
F2,
I can, I will try to overlay a video. I'm not sure copyright stuff and stuff. So if you're watching on YouTube and you don't see that, it's because we decided not to because we don't want the video taken down.
fair enough.
But it is
But
kind of sick to watch. It's crazy.
yeah, it was. I'm glad that's all the incidents there were, though. It wasn't a. First Spa was a pretty calm weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there was more crashes during practice and quali, or well, not even quali. There was more crashes during practices than there were during any of the rest of the weekend. And for
Except
F1,
for the one
at
that we're
least.
going to really disagree on. So,
Well, that wasn't. I don't classify that as a crash per se, but we can just jump into it. I think the
yeah.
FIA fucking sucks, and I think the stewards were fucking lazy and inconsistent and can't do their jobs right. That's where I stand with this. So
All right. Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Well, but I have to give an explanation because there was a couple incidences during this race. Two of them kind of go hand in hand with this.
Yeah, let's focus on those two first because those are the ones that we have a very big disagreement on.
Yes. So lap 1, right after turn 1, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell had an incident where it caused George Russell to not finish the race, and Lewis Hamilton got handed a 5-second penalty. I don't think that penalty should have been assigned. Purely because lap 1 first turn incidents happen all the time, and rarely do they get penalties. And I think the thing that drives me the most crazy is that they handed him a penalty, but in the document, which I have pulled up, or had pulled up, I guess. Oh, yeah, here it is. They list out all the reasons why they shouldn't give him a penalty, which was opening lap, first turn, cold tires, and Lewis didn't inherently do anything reckless. But they gave him a penalty. Granted, it was 5 seconds instead of the normal 10-second penalty. I can breathe a little bit more with that. However, there have been multiple cases over the years and this season where lap 1, first turn incidents happen, and neither driver gets a penalty for it. And I watched the onboards, and Lewis didn't do anything wrong. The second thing is there was an unsafe release in with Lewis involved in the pit, where the little light above the car that turns green when they're ready to go from the pit, and during a pit stop, turned green, and Lewis ran over a pit crew member. The pit crew member is okay, thankfully. But in those situations, the driver gets a penalty, not the team. The team doesn't get fined. The driver always gets a penalty for the race. But during that, they during the race, after it happened, they said after race investigation, and they fined the team. And I believe it's because the stewards felt like they fucked up by giving Lewis a 5-second penalty for a first lap incident and decided to fine the team and give it a 12-month delay in payment if nothing happens again. And that's like they tried to cover their asses by mistakenly giving Lewis a penalty. And I'm pissed about it.
Okay, so let me address the last one first. There is a difference between the unsafe release that you were talking about, typically getting a penalty, and Lewis's unsafe release. Lewis got an unsafe condition release, which the unsafe releases that get penalties are usually when a car is released into the path of another car. Lewis got an unsafe release for basically running over his own crew member.
When the light turned green, which he has no control over, that's Ferrari's fault.
It's on the driver to know his surroundings.
With rearview mirrors that are smaller than Trump's dick.
But the driver also gets the penalty when released into traffic.
So
the driver gets the penalty on both. The reason why this isn't a time penalty is because it didn't affect anyone's race. This was a safety issue. And similar instances of things like that happening with drivers and their crew members are usually met with fines. Either a team issue that if it's considered to be the team's fault, the team gets the fine. If it's considered to be a driver thing, the driver gets the fine. The FIA decided it was a driver issue, so the driver got the fine.
Which is, I still think that's bullshit, though, because he's listening to the fucking light that he doesn't control. The light's red when he's not supposed to go. The light turns green when he's fucking supposed to go.
But there are other elements to that. He could clearly, from that angle, if it was a crew member at the back, I would agree with you. But it was a crew member at the front of the car. He should be able to see the crew member at his front tire, especially with how big the front tires are. The first lap incident,
which is bullshit, and I will fucking die on that hill.
I disagree. For a very simple thing. Most first lap incident things that aren't given penalties are meant for the race start in the first couple corners.
That was within the first couple corners.
No, it wasn't. It was halfway around the lap. We are already over Eau Rouge into the hairpin. That's they crashed at the end of the long straight. You were you were at the end of the first sector. If it was,
which is only a third of the way through the track.
But if you were going up to Eau Rouge, like once you have passed Eau Rouge and gotten to the top of Eau Rouge and you're on the straight, to me that is no longer that is the limit of the first lap penalty. Or of the let's not give a penalty because it's the first lap. Like once you're at the end of the Kemmel Straight, I don't consider that anymore in that range of our cold tires starting first lap incident. It'd be like halfway. Okay, a great example. I'll give you a great example of another time a penalty was given involving Lewis Hamilton halfway around a lap. Lewis and Max Verstappen, Silverstone 2021. It was the second half of the lap when Lewis wrecked into Max and sent him into the barriers. Lewis got a 10-second penalty for that. Very similar situation, different track, but very similar situation. Halfway around the first lap, a collision's made that wrecks one driver out of the race. Another incident. Okay, the very start of Silverstone the very next year. Do you remember the Guan Yu Zhou wreck? Or Zhou Guan Yu wreck? Where he flipped over on top and went to the barriers. George Russell got a penalty for that incident, and that was at the very start. That was off the line. That wreck happened going into the first corner. So it's not like they don't give first lap penalties. They just try to err on the side of caution. But Lewis, unfortunately, has a history at that corner. This is not the first time he's done a dumb move at that corner. If you remember
But
him wrecking
he didn't do a dumb move. It says car 40. It says verbatim, the stewards recognized several mitigating circumstances. Car 44 acknowledged the presence of car 63, George Russell, attempted to leave appropriate room and made a genuine attempt to avoid contact.
Attempt. But the fact is, him overshooting that corner led to the contact.
But but the thing that pisses me off the most is there have been attempts and have been giving penalties for fucking no reason, where no one got race-ending penalty. Like, no one got at their end, the race ended, and they didn't get fucking penalties. If you're gonna assign a penalty for attempting to avoid contact, make it fucking consistent.
But his race
100% of the time. But that's
Russell's
the thing.
race didn't.
Yep, that's the thing.
And it's the same exact type of contact that he made with Max when in Silverstone. When Lewis has incidents, it is always the same incident. He did the same thing to Alex Albon at Austria. Very, very similar incident where Lewis has this bad habit. The one bad driving habit I think Lewis has is when a guy is on his outside trying to pass him and they are ahead, he is not great at avoiding contact with their back tire. Several times, and those are the ones that just come to the top of my head without thinking of it, Lewis has had this incident where he doesn't leave quite enough room and their back tire hits his front tire and they spin out. He did it to Albon twice. He's done it to Albon. He did it to Max. He did it to Russell. It's one of the few driving quirks that Lewis has that he's not great at. So his history is not on his side there. And that specific kind of contact almost always leads to a penalty. When your front tire hits another driver's back tire when you are trying to share a corner together, the penalty almost always goes to the driver whose front tire hit the back tire because the other car is considered ahead at the apex, and that's almost always a penalty. That's why I disagree, because
you're not wrong for disagreeing.
You can disagree with the letter of the law. Like if you don't like the rule, that's one thing. But one of the few times I'm going to defend the FIA is they are very consistent in that specific type of accident in how they police it. When you have a front tire to back tire collision and it is the car in the rear that is the one that creates the contact with the back tire, fair or not, that's almost always a penalty. If you remember Behrman, his rookie year, when he was it Behrman filling in races? Or no, his rookie year at Haas is this year, right? Who am I thinking of?
God,
I
don't fucking know.
My brain is seizing up. It happened last year at Brazil, where there was a driver who was spun, and I want to say it was Behrman who spun somebody, but
was he filling in for somebody?
God, I wish I could remember what the fuck happened. But there was an incident in Brazil where a driver hit another driver. The driver who spun was actually the driver behind who caused the accident, and they're the one who got the penalty because they were the one who committed a front tire to back tire thing. And even though they were the ones who spun, it was still a penalty on them. So they spun, ended up last, and then still had a 10-second penalty. I don't know who I'm thinking of. I'm saying Behrman, but Behrman is not who I mean.
It might come back to you, but I'm going to move on and just say that I think my unhappiness with this is the fact that given that racing in F1 as it currently stands this season, this year, kind of fucking sucks a lot of the time. And when they actually get to race and they bump fucking tires, there's a penalty. And it's kind of fucking annoying.
But you can say that, but at the same time, we both also disagree with the penalty that didn't get given for some bumping.
Charles Leclerc.
Yeah. Which I don't actually think that was a penalty. I do think he should have gotten a black and white flag for it, though. I think he should have gotten a warning. I don't think it was
He should have got
worthy of
some
a penalty.
reprimand.
Yeah, I didn't like the steward's explanation. Not because it doesn't follow the rules, but I don't like what that rule is. So I won't argue that it's inconsistent because unfortunately they're a little bit consistent with that rule, but I don't like the idea.
That's the second time this episode you've said the FIA is consistent with their unpaid stewards.
Well, but consistent can be bad too. It doesn't always have to be good. But my argument with you was that it's not inconsistent. It's just maybe not the best rule, but it's the thing with Charles. I don't necessarily think he should have got a penalty, but I don't like setting that standard to where, oh, I'm ahead. Even if there's a car on my outside, I can push them to the track as long as they're in the right position before the corner. I'm not a fan of that. Because then you force people to be like what Lewis did in that corner and get a penalty.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lose-lose battle. I can agree on that element, but I won't agree calling it inconsistent because they've been unfortunately very consistent. And I know I saw some people bring up the
I don't think
Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc thing that happened a little while in what was that 2024 where Max got a penalty. But I think A, that incident's a little bit different, and B, the rules have been adjusted since then. So I don't think that quite equates because they have changed the wording of the rules to make this not as much of a penalty. I just don't like the rule itself.
That's fair. And I will say I'm a bit tainted by a friend of ours in our group chat that thinks that NASCAR should get penalties for every tap that happens.
Yeah.
And I just want fucking racing. I want real racing. That's what I want.
I think we need to find a better compromise in racing.
That won't happen with Salam. It won't.
It could.
I don't think it will. I'll put money on it.
The problem is it's going to happen. It's just going to take a bad accident to make it happen.
And that's the reason why I will put money on it not happening, because it won't happen until something fucking tragic happens.
That's why I think it's going to happen. Is eventually something bad's going to happen. It unfortunately, it's the way F1's been for way too long, where they tend to wait for bad shit to happen before they change something that we all think is a bad thing that's going to happen.
And then they cry wolf and say, "Oh, it wasn't our fault. We didn't anticipate this happening." Blah 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 blah.
Like the rule set. Like, oh, we didn't know it was going to be this. Like, really? Because I remember a driver you guys ostracized saying it 3 years ago.
Exactly.
2 of them, actually, because to give credit to Lewis was complaining just as much as Max about the new rules 2 years ago.
I don't have a problem with F1 as a whole. I have a problem with the FIA. And that won't go away anytime soon, given the current circumstances of him not having term limits anymore,
or age limits, because they managed to pass that too.
Yeah, so he's just fucking indefinitely the fucking president. And if there's one thing that'll make me stop watching F1, it's Ben Sulayem ruining the sport for money. And it's been happening for a few years now. I hope it slows. But
part of my problem is also your buddy's an Audi. because
that's
Audi is
valid.
part of the reason this is fucked.
That is valid. I will accept that.
Because they refuse to back down on these regs, and they're one of the big stalwarts of not changing anything. And I think the fact that we're bending over for a manufacturer that hasn't been involved in F1 until it became popular enough for them to want to be involved really pisses me off.
I would agree with that. Yeah,
Because we're
100%.
fucking over the teams that built this into what it is now. Like, I was watching F1 when the stands at Barcelona were half empty. You know, I remember F1 when it was much smaller, and the fact that this new manufacturer coming in is a big thorn in the side of fixing what's wrong with these rules is really getting on my nerves. And you know me, I'm someone who really welcomed Audi coming in. I thought that was going to be an amazing thing, and right now they're really pissing me off with how much they're fighting the power split and the things like that, because as soon as viewership goes downhill and there's not so much money, Audi will be the first team out. And that irritates me. You're muted.
Apparently I am. I don't know why. Oh, I think I hit mark clip instead of, yeah, my bad. No, I agree with that. And it's a good thing I'm primarily a McLaren fan. But before we end, NASCAR, what are your thoughts? You watched the whole race. I caught 75-ish% of it.
I don't know. So, and maybe all I caught was the discourse, but I saw a bit of online discourse about the race being bad, and I don't understand. I get it because of things that happened. You only had a couple cars on the lead lap because of the way the caution came out mid pit stops and trapped most of the field a lap down.
Well, so
there wasn't a huge fight for the win, but
here's a fact that I learned during the race. The most cars that have ever finished on the lead lap at that track was 13 cars in 1993.
Okay, so what? You stopped me mid stride of what I was about to say in that regard, which is fans need to pick a lane. You either want some old school back in NASCAR or you don't. You can't beg for this old school track to come back and then be mad that an old school race happens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm starting to be convinced that people don't actually
like NASCAR.
Or people who complain about NASCAR and want it to go back to the old days don't actually know what the fuck the old days are.
True. 100%.
Great example. All the complaining about Daytona's package. So they released the new Daytona package, less horsepower, less downforce.
And everybody's adjusted the rear wing and stuff.
Yeah. Adjusted the rear wing, went down to, I think it's 465 horsepower. And people are like, oh, bring back 800, 900 horsepower. It was never fucking there to begin with. In the 90s, they didn't have 900 horsepower. And that didn't exist. Ever. I don't know what the fuck you people are talking about. I mean, the golden era of NASCAR they're talking about wasn't that. That's not what the horsepower was. Bill Elliott set the fastest lap ever in NASCAR. Guess what? He didn't have an 800 horsepower car when he did it. These people are making up histories that don't exist to complain about things.
These people are using ChatGPT to tell them things, but also I'm going to stop there and not marginalize our audience because what I have to say could be pretty brutal, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's... I think people have a romanticized view of a sport that didn't exist.
Yes. They want the good old days, but they don't fucking understand what the good old days were.
Well, and most of them weren't there for them.
Exactly.
and they didn't watch religiously. They just think that they did because they remember Dale Earnhardt and they think they knew what was going on. But that was never the technical element of NASCAR.
No.
And hey, if you want racing at Daytona, guess what you have to do?
Adjust to Daytona.
Yeah, and more horsepower does not mean better racing.
No, it means more crashes. And maybe that's what these fucking people want. They want everybody to fucking die.
It's not even the more crashes. The horsepower doesn't affect the racing on tracks like that because there is so much drafting, it doesn't matter. What affects the racing is fuel saving. Hey, guess
and
what?
downforce.
Guess what? If you up the horsepower, guess what you do? You burn more fuel. So then everything you did by taking the downforce off is ruined because now you're back in a fuel saving race.
Yeah.
No, you lower the horsepower, so you eat less fuel. You lower the drag, so you eat less fuel. Guess what? If you go faster, more drag. You go slower, less drag. And let's be clear. By slower, we're talking the cars are still going to be at about 190 miles an hour. That's fine. I went to Charlotte. They were plenty fast.
And most people that watch NASCAR don't go 190 miles an hour to begin with, so they have no idea what that is.
It's only for Daytona. They are only decreasing the horsepower for Daytona. This is a test. The Daytona race is a test to see how this new package works. It is literally currently an only
at Daytona.
Only this race at Daytona, this one specific race, it's a test for it. If it succeeds, then they'll implement it at Talladega.
Yeah.
But even if that happens, okay, it will only be Daytona and Talladega. Atlanta has its own rule set because Atlanta already has good racing. They are trying to create the racing that exists at Atlanta at Daytona and Talladega because people like that more.
Yeah.
So maybe just shut the fuck up sometimes. That's
and also
my slight rant at NASCAR fans.
And probably educate yourself a little bit. Like actually educate yourself on what you're talking about would be fucking cherry on top.
A little less yeehaw, a little more read a book. That's all I'm saying.
That was a lot nicer than I would have said
it. It just infuriates me when people argue for things that never existed to begin with.
And like the thing is that people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you've never watched NASCAR." I'm like, "Bro, I was wearing a Tony Stewart Home Depot jacket for fucking 10 years of my life."
I remember Jeff Gordon in a Baby Ruth car in the Busch series. All right.
Yes, exactly. So y'all can suck my nuts and learn the fuck what you're talking about.
Literally, the reason I went to my first NASCAR race at Charlotte was because that was the track that got Jeff Gordon signed to Hendrick Motorsports. Rick Hendrick saw Gordon practicing in what used to be the Busch Grand National Series at Charlotte and saw the way he was just sliding it through the corners right on the edge and found out who the driver was and pried him away from Ford to come join Hendrick. Like, awesome backstory too. If you ever get a chance to read Jeff Gordon's book, it's amazing. It really is.
It's on my list.
It's a really, really good read. Jeff Gordon has a really good book, and Dale Jr. has a really good book too. Both of them have wonderful books about their careers. But aside from that, I just want fans to quit complaining about things that never existed. It's bring back V10 crowds in F1. Those V10 races fucking sucked. Yeah, the cars sounded cool, but guys were winning by huge margins, and there was maybe a race between two guys, if you were lucky. And you also occasionally had races where somebody would win by a lap. But I think revisionist history has people remembering things different than the way they existed because they think it was a better time because it has their nostalgia.
But also, there's AI that they're probably going to ask and will tell it completely wrong.
To a point, yeah. I think that's some of it. But I also do think a lot of things, especially when you're dealing with older fans, are nostalgia. And nostalgia makes you remember things different than they were. And I think some NASCAR fans are going through that right now, where it's like, I hate to tell you, but the Dale era wasn't that, guys. You're dealing with 700 horsepower cars. They just had much less of the downforce element, so there wasn't as much drag, so they could be a little bit more racy. And that's what they're trying to do. I give NASCAR some credit for once. They were trying. They're trying with Daytona. They understand the racing sucks, and they want to fix it.
Do you think that's because of the lawsuit that they lost last year?
No, I do think NASCAR in general actually gives a shit. Do I think France tried to strong arm the teams and that's why France isn't really in charge of anything anymore? Yeah, absolutely. But I do think NASCAR does, at its heart, give a shit about its fans. I think more than most motorsports it does. I really do believe NASCAR cares about its fans. I just think sometimes the fans are asking for things that either aren't realistic or things that didn't really exist that nostalgia tells them did.
That's valid.
And I personally, I thought North Wilkesboro was amazing. I loved it. It was a great race. Even if I don't like the dude who won, I I really enjoyed it. I love that track. I love the environment. The weekend there is so cool. I love small tracks like that being involved in NASCAR because it feels so much bigger when you're at a place like that.
Oh
The
yeah.
fans appreciate it more. The drivers love it more. The environment is awesome. I'm really, really thinking about going there next year to experience that myself because I got to say, watching it on TV, it looked like the greatest fucking time ever. That's definitely a possibility of us doing that next year. But I thought it looked like I don't usually get caught up in that stuff of like how the event looked and everything. That looked like a fun. I even watched a lot of the pre-race stuff because it just looked like a hell of a weekend. It looked like it was a lot of fun.
I will say for the people listening to audio where it sounds like Josh is talking to nobody, it was just because I was giving pick me energy via video. So
Yeah,
it wasn't that I wasn't here. It was that I was just
got it.
silent and just saying pick me quietly.
Yeah, he didn't mute himself again this time.
No, I didn't. But I think that is probably where we're going to end it today.
Yeah, we got through a lot today.
We did in an hour, and we got some heated argument, which is good. I still love you always.
I wouldn't go as far as heated, just a little spirited in our opinions.
That's valid. That's valid. But no matter how spirited or heated we are, I still love you no matter what. So, yeah. As always, if you like what we're doing, drop a follow, drop a like, leave a comment, whatever you so choose to do. It always helps us out. And I've been Tyler.
Josh.
This has been the F1 Unhinged podcast, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.